6 November 2023, and today I'm going to be quickly looking at a very, very significant development that happened last week, and this is going to affect almost every Zimbabwean that is resident in South Africa. So I normally don't handle such topics, but this is very, very significant, and this is to do with the law that has been in place in South Africa which allowed police and immigration officials to arrest Zimbabweans and throw them into jail for months without trial. So right now, as we speak, there is thousands and thousands of Zimbabweans in jail in South Africa without trial, who have been arrested and who are being kept at police stations, who are being kept in jails in Pumalanga, who are staying at Lindela, awaiting repatriation. And these people have been living under very, very difficult conditions. I've had to go and rescue some people in South Africa at some police stations where police are basically keeping people hostage, and they make the families go there with money, and then they release these people after being paid. And this is something that has happened, and I was watching. So it's not unknown and uncommon. Zimbabweans are living under very, very difficult conditions. There are also other cases right now, which I'm going to touch regarding Zimbabweans in South Africa. But the last case that I'm talking about, the current case that I'm talking about, is to do with the Constitutional Court case, which was heard last week on Monday. And the Minister of Home Affairs has lost that court case. And the court case is with regards to the period with which or within which the South African police should bring a Zimbabwean who is arrested to court. So currently what they were doing is they could go up to 30 days with someone in holding cells at the police station. Currently, this has been a big problem. I know guys who've been in jail right now for 6 months, moved around from province to province. And some of them, they're just taken to court and the judges are refusing to hear the cases. A case in point is one guy that was arrested that I was employing to do some work for me in Zimbabwe. He did not have his passport on his person when he was arrested. And they took him, they went away with him for the whole weekend. And they did not tell his family where he was. They did not give him a chance to make a phone call. After 4 days, they took him to the court and they sat outside waiting to go into court. The judge refused to hear the case, and the police just drove away and left the 20 people who were arrested sitting there, and the guys just walked away. And this is the chaos that is there in the police, in the South African Home Affairs, because this is caused by South African Home Affairs. South African Home Affairs is, what can I say? I want to choose a word that is kind here. The South African Home Affairs is behaving like a bully to Zimbabweans because they do not want to follow the law. So this court case that was heard on Monday, it was actually heard way back in 2017, and Home Affairs lost the case. It was ordered to change two pieces of legislation which were deemed to be unconstitutional. So at that time, in 2017, they were ordered to change the law within 2 years. They failed to change the law within 2 years. By 2019, they hadn't changed the law. In 2020, they said there was COVID. In 2022, they tried to extend that provision to say we need more time to change the law. And this is what the judge has said now, that this is unconstitutional. You cannot have a law where people are just arrested and they're kept in jail for months and months and months until the member of the family has paid money. Basically, that is what it is. It's being held hostage. And police and all these guys in immigration were taking this as a license to arrest people and keep them in cells. So this is over. The police will not be able to do this. They have been given 1 year by the judge to make this law. The Parliament of South Africa must make it a law that if someone is arrested for uh, immigration crimes, let's say they're in South Africa illegally, they must be brought to court within 2 days. So within 48 hours, they must appear before a judge, and the judge must release them unconditionally, or sorry, conditionally, which is they must give them conditions to say you can go, but you must come back to attend court. Because being an immigrant is not a crime. It's not a crime, especially for the economic refugees coming from Zimbabwe. The president of South Africa has been supporting President Idi Mnangagwa, even though SADC has said that the election in Zimbabwe was rigged. And this is happening right now as you speak. You can go back to as far as President Thabo Mbeki. Everyone was supporting the situation in Zimbabwe. They continue to support the government in Zimbabwe. That is why they have refugees here in South Africa. The South African government is part of the problem, and Home Affairs is worse. The West Ministry in South Africa, Department of Home Affairs, they have done so many things. They've lost so many court cases. Look at the Zimbabwe exemptions permit case. They've lost that court case. They do not want to extend the Zimbabwe exemptions permit for people who've been in South Africa for over 10 years. And yet, these are productively employed people who are at work. People cannot bank, people cannot legally move around. So someone who was legal in South Africa for 10 years is now illegal. That is Home Affairs for you. Children who were born in South Africa, they don't want to give them birth certificates. There are thousands and thousands of Zimbabwean children who are here who don't have birth certificates. Children who were born in South Africa who don't have birth certificates, schools are refusing to allow them to attend. You cannot become a student without a birth certificate, without a payment. But we know very well that most parents cannot afford to go to Zimbabwe. It's very, very hard to get a birth certificate from South Africa in Zimbabwe, especially if you're working a job as a domestic worker. There is no such thing as leave if you're working such a job. Then we also have the case of this detention, like Zimbabweans were detained for months and months without trial. So those are some of the cases. And we've also had a situation where the South African government attempted to take away citizenship from children who were born in South Africa who originally had citizenship. But when the law changed, they wanted to remove the citizenship from the South African kids who were born before the law was changed. This is craziness of the highest case of the highest kind. You cannot believe what the Department of Home Affairs is doing. And the judge was cognizant of this fact. What he did was he ordered Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi to pay his own legal fees. So do you see how bad this is? The judge was like, what is he doing there at Home Affairs? Is he running his own errand or is he following the laws? So himself and his director general, they were ordered to pay their own legal fees because they're not representing the South African government, they're not representing the South African people, they are on their own errand, and it's not clear what they're doing. The lawyers who were representing them were ordered by the judge not to receive their fee. This is how bad this situation is. The South African immigration law is totally broken. There is vindictiveness and there is a Dudula approach at the Department of Home Affairs. They do not understand the worldwide movements or direction where progressive nations are going with immigration. There is no reason to behave as if you don't know that there are economic refugees in every country. So there are South Africans who are economic refugees in Australia. There are South Africans who are economic refugees in the UK, in New Zealand, in all those countries. They don't like to be here. So they've gone to those countries. And after 2 years, they are citizens. After 3 years or so, some of them are permanent residents, depending on which country. But in South Africa, it's so difficult. It's not automatic. to become a citizen. It's not automatic to become a permanent resident. And these things are supposed to be simple. Right now, the complicated nature of the immigration law in South Africa is costing the government millions and millions. They've even created a whole unit to try to stop people from crossing into South Africa. And that is a waste of time. You know very well that the people that are already here in South Africa are more than the people that are in Zimbabwe. So what are you trying to stop? And Home Affairs, have you seen the queues in front of the Home Affairs offices? Uh, among the South Africans, I'm not talking about the Zimbabwean side. If you go to any Home Affairs department, people are queuing up, endless queues, and they're creating more work for themselves by trying to stop people who are actually legally here from staying here. And they are then making it worse for themselves by trying to continuously renew this paperwork. Instead of properly registering the person, make sure that if the person is here for 5 years, they get their paperwork and they get out of the system of continuously trying to renew. And they get a passport. Many people who are traveling, they don't have a passport. And this is why people have to jump the border. If people commit crimes, you can't catch them. So you don't have a proper register of the people that are here in South Africa. So the implications for this judgment are massive. The immigration law has to be changed, and sanity must prevail at Home Affairs. Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, ever since he got into office, he has not managed this properly. He has not managed immigration law properly. He should have been working very, very quickly to change the law so that we get the legal people from being a problem and to start dealing with the illegal people. Now everyone is a problem. Everyone needs to be managed. The Home Affairs is wanting to manage 4 million people instead of getting these people out of the system and managing the few people that are not legal. So what would I suggest that they do? Because the law is supposed to be changed within the next 12 months. So firstly, the law is broken. They must admit that the South African immigration law is broken. Then they need to make the new immigration law very, very friendly. When I say friendly, I mean make a distinction between someone who is supposed to be here and someone who is not supposed to be here. So if someone is working as a domestic worker or a painter or someone who drives trucks, right? Those are the problems. You don't take that guy who is your domestic worker and say you can't have papers because you don't have a degree. It doesn't need a degree to be a domestic worker. Make sure that every domestic worker has a domestic worker permit, which allows them to be here. A child minder supposed to be here. They're supposed to have a permit. Then they don't have to jump the border when they're going home. They can bring their child here. They can open a bank account. Similar to a driver, they don't have to have problems when they're driving around because you know the South African guys don't want to drive out of South Africa. They want to drive around South Africa. So you want a Zimbabwean guy who wants to come here, get his truck in Durban, and drive to the DRC. You want him to be legally here. So all this must be done in the new immigration law. You also want the children who are born here to get birth certificates. A child is born in South Africa, they are a South African child. All you have to do is write Zimbabwean on their birth certificate. You don't have to write South African if you don't want them to be automatically a South African. But they were born in South Africa, so they should have a birth certificate or they should have a birth record. Not the current situation where there's haggling and people have to spend months and months and then go to the Zimbabwean embassy to get a birth certificate. It makes no sense because that child was born in South Africa. Then you need to reduce the time to be permanent resident. If someone has a permit for 2 years, automatically they have to become a permanent resident. There's no need for them to keep going back to Home Affairs to renew. Remember what they did with the quarter work permit. A person had to go and queue up every 2 years at Home Affairs to renew that permit. And yet it was an automatic permanent resident. So some of these things have to be permanent. And then after 5 years, a person must be eligible for naturalization. Those are some of the things that you need to do. And as I said, there must be a permit for unskilled workers, such as domestic workers, painters, and so on. So if you do that, you simplify the law, you have a record of everybody. Everyone can open a bank account and everyone can live in South Africa legally. You cannot force Zimbabweans to go back to their country before you fix the country over there. And your president cannot be uh, supporting rigging, violence, and all the things that are happening in Zimbabwe. And then you try to push those people back to the country where you're supporting the West behavior by the current government of Zimbabwe. So, and the Zimbabwe exemptions permit, all the guys there must be automatically permanent residents. There's no question about it. The guys who are on ZEP, they've been here for more than 10 years. They deserve to be permanent residents. And now they need to release everyone. So all the police stations that are holding the Zimbabweans, they must release them. All the people, the jails that are holding the Zimbabweans, they must release them and deal with them legally. Give them something. I don't know what you can give them, but you have to give them something to show that they are here. A record that they're here. But legally, you cannot hold someone for more than 2 days without going to court. And then we go to the issue of Lindela. We cannot continue to have the situation that is happening at Lindela, where people have stayed there. I was looking at the guy who was saying he stayed there for 5 years. So it makes no sense. They need to simplify this whole situation, and then they will do very, very well. So certainly the court, very, very correct here. I think lawyers for human rights and Helen Suzman Foundation, these are the two parties that brought this court case in 2017. They won against the Department of Home Affairs, and the Department of Home Affairs doing very, very badly under Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Their approach to Home Affairs, as I said, is the Dudula approach, and that does not work. You need the immigrants here. You cannot arrest people and throw them in jail just because they're coming here looking for a living. Right now, let's quickly look at the comments, and let's look at Rose. Hands off our home affairs, hands off. Rose, the Constitutional Court is the highest court in South Africa. It has charged your Minister of Home Affairs. So you must understand what the Constitutional Court is. They do not want what the Home Affairs is doing now. The Dudula approach must be done by people on the street, not by a Home Affairs. So the Home Affairs must not do their thing, their own thing. They were told to change the law and they ignored it. And they're trying to continue not changing the law. And they want to arrest people and keep them in jail illegally. That's illegal and unconstitutional and inhuman. So they can't do that. And then my brother was arrested for oily this year, and we paid 4,000 to come out after months. That's true. I know guys who've been in jail for 6 months, more than that, in jail at police stations. They even moved them to different provinces. That's what Home Affairs is doing. And this is just for immigration. It's not like someone has committed a crime here. They are just trying to make a living. There's no person who comes to South Africa because they want to. They're coming to South Africa because the situation in Zimbabwe is unbearable. And this should be made very, very clear to the South African government. When you support the rigging in Zimbabwe, you are supporting a lot of people coming over here. And so the South African government should not support rigging. This weekend, there was an emergency summit of the heads of state of SADC, and they adopted a report which said that the elections in Zimbabwe was rigged. So we want to see if President Ramaphosa is going to acknowledge that there's such a report and that the situation in Zimbabwe must be addressed, because this is why people are coming to South Africa. And then Edwin is saying Lindela will not take a ticket to deport, so you have to pay to get deported, otherwise they keep you there for months. So corruption is rampant, but the law has said 48 hours. You have to release these people. You can't arrest people and keep them in jail forever. And the court must hear the person. They must also give them bail. They're eligible to get bail. Then pakudhipotwa ndakatengeserwa ticket rakanzi Harare, but takasiiwa paborder tabhadhara 650 per vanhu. So he was paying. There's obviously problems with the deportation problems. People just get left at the border, and most people just jump back. So it's a waste of money, as I said. But the key fact is that the Constitutional Court in South Africa here has ruled that the arrest and detention of Zimbabwean illegal immigrants and keeping them in jail beyond 48 hours is illegal, and the law should be changed. Immigration law should be changed. There are many, many things to be changed here in South Africa, and specifically the suggestions that I've given here. People who are here legally should be allowed to stay here legally. Those who are not here illegally, they should be treated in a humane manner. So that is it for today. That is it. I hope Home Affairs in South Africa changes the approach. They move from the Dudula approach and start working like a progressive department. The Department of Home Affairs should be progressive. They should not do what they're doing now. They should not allow inhuman treatment of people. And that is something that should be made very, very clear. I've made it very clear when I've had a chance to go over to Home Affairs to get one or two people out. And I've made it very clear to the police. The police in South Africa, when they're dealing with immigrants, the way they approach it, it's very, very bad. And I think it's something to do with the training. They don't understand how to deal with people. And immigrants are not criminals. They're just people who are hungry, who want something to do, who want to work. So you can't treat them like criminals and lock them up ever, like they've been doing now. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow here as we look at more issues, especially the mismanagement and corruption in the banking sector in Zimbabwe. One of the government banks, the Zimbabwe Women's Microfinance Institution, which was formed and is financed by the Zimbabwe government. I want to take you through their financial statement, and you see the very, very bad situation, the bad corruption that is there in Zimbabwe, just like we did NBS. Anything associated with NASA, with the Zimbabwe government, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, we're going to be watching them very, very closely, and I'll be unpacking it here every week as we go. Thank you very much, everybody, and good night.
Kuno abo pano mama wanna get it nice I know pura meso I know pura nzebe I know kaya marigi kama kweto tikomo Don't come
Kamba kwe uyo anotara mari anogaya mari garai mamunzwa pane pano zvamunoda kunzwa zvinotaurwa pano madiko kumunzwa mugovane.com Kamba kwe vanogaya mari vanotaura mari vanosiya mari Kamba kwe vanotaura feya kuti pamberi zvichafamba sei vanomuterere zvikubatsirei mukufamba kwenyu zvikubatsirei mirai ndikudzei kuti chokwadi pano chizere Kamba kwe vanogaya cash vanopa mafacts vanotaura straight vane evidence vane confidence plus intelligence
entertainment current affairs and news Kamba kwe don't come usasarire Kamba kwe anogaya mari